በስመ አብ ወወልድ ወመንፈስ ቅዱስ አሐዱ አምላክ አሜን። የተከበሩ አባታችን ሊቀ ጉባኤ ቆሞስ አባ ሳሙኤል እንዲሁም በየስፍራ ሆናችሁ ይህን አገልግሎት የምትከታተሉ የእግዚአብሔር ልጆች እንደምን ዋላችሁ፣ እንደምን አረፈዳችሁ። እንደተለመደው ዛሬ የሰንዴይ ስኩል ፕሮግራማችን ለልጆች በእንግሊዘኛ የምናስተላልፈው ፕሮግራም ይቀጥላል። ከዛ በፊት ጉባኤውን አባታችን አባ ሳሙኤል በጸሎት ይከፍቱልናል።
በስመ አብ ወወልድ ወመንፈስ ቅዱስ አሐዱ አምላክ ቅዱስ ሥላሴ ንዛመን ወትማጸን ክህደ ከሰይጣን በቅር መዛቲም የቅዱስ ቤተ ክርስቲያን ተይቲ ስነ ማርያም ዘወላ ዓለም ዓለም። አቤቱ አምላካችን ፈጣሪያችን እግዚአብሔር ሆይ በቸርነትህ በምሕረትህ በቅድስናህ ቀድሰ በሰላም ስለዋልከን እናመሰግንሃለን። ጉባኤ ነቢያትን፣ ጉባኤ ሐዋርያትን፣ ጉባኤ ሊቃውንትን የባረክ የእኛንም የልጆችህን ጉባኤ እንድትባርክ ማስተዋልን፣ ጥበብን፣ ፍቅርን፣ አንድነትን እንድታላብሰን ጽናትን፣ ትዕግስትን እንድሰጠን እንዲህ ብለን ቅዱስና ዘላለማዊ ስምህን እንጠራለን። አባታችን ሆይ በሰማያት የምትኖር ስምህ ይቀደስ፣ መንግሥትህ ትምጣ፣ ፈቃድህ በሰማይ እንደሆነች እንዲሁም በምድር ትሁን። የዕለት እንጀራችንን ስጠን ዛሬ፣ በደላችንን ሁሉ ይቅር በለን እኛም የበደሉን ይቅር እንደምንል፣ አቤቱ ወደ ፈተና አታግባን ከክፉ ሁሉ አድነን እንጂ መንግሥት ያንተ ናትና ኃይል፣ ክብር፣ ምስጋና ለዘላለሙ አሜን። እመቤታችን ቅድስት ድንግል ማርያም ሆይ በመልአኩ በቅዱስ ገብርኤል ሰላምታ ሰላም እንልሻለን። በሐሳብሽ ድንግል ነሽ፣ በሥጋሽም ድንግል ነሽ። የአሸናፊ እግዚአብሔር እናት ሆይ ሰላምታ ላንቺ ይገባሻል። ከሴቶች ሁሉ ተለይተሽ አንቺ የተባረክሽ ነሽ፣ የማኅፀንሽም ፍሬ የተባረከ ነው። ጸጋን የተመላሽ ቅድስት ሆይ ደስ ይበልሽ፣ ልዑል እግዚአብሔር ከአንቺ ጋር ነውና ከተወደደው ልጅሽ ከጌታችን ከመድኃኒታችን ከኢየሱስ ክርስቶስ ዘንድ ይቅርታውና ምሕረቱን ለምኝልን ኃጢአታችንን ያስተሰርይልን ዘንድ ለዘላለሙ አሜን። ኦ ጊዜ ኢየሱስ ክርስቶስ ሠራይ ኃጢአት የኃጢአተ ኩሉ ሕዝብከ የማይሠራ ኃጢአት እግዚአብሔር ይፍታ። ጉባኤያችንን አምላካችን እግዚአብሔር ይባርክልን።
በስመ አብ ወወልድ ወመንፈስ ቅዱስ አሐዱ አምላክ አሜን። ይህ በሎስ አንጀለስ ቅድስት ማርያም የኢትዮጵያ ኦርቶዶክስ ተዋሕዶ ቤተ ክርስቲያን የቀጥታ ስርጭት አገልግሎታችን ነው። በሳምንት 3 ቀን ሰኞ፣ ረቡዕ፣ ዓርብ በሎስ አንጀለስ ሰዓት አቆጣጠር ከ6 ፒኤም እስከ 7 ፒኤም ለ1 ሰዓት የሚቆይ ዘመኑን የዋጀ የወንጌል አገልግሎት ይኖረናል። እንዲሁም ዘውትር እሁድ ከማለዳው 5 ሰዓት በሎስ አንጀለስ ሰዓት አቆጣጠር ጀምሮ ሙሉ የቤተ ክርስቲያኒቱን አገልግሎት በቀጥታ ስርጭት የምናስተላልፍ ስለሆነ ከወዲሁ መርሃ ግብራችንን አውቃችሁ እንድትከታተሉ መንፈሳዊ ጥሪያችንን እናስተላልፋለን። ይህ የሎስ አንጀለስ የቅድስት ማርያም የኢትዮጵያ ኦርቶዶክስ ተዋሕዶ ቤተ ክርስቲያን የቀጥታ ስርጭት አገልግሎታችን ነው።
Good afternoon, everyone. How are we all doing? I hope we're all doing well. It has been a long time. We miss all of you. We miss all your faces on Sunday. And quarantine has been tough. And all we can do now is pray to God, have hope that He will allow for this time to pass. And this is all we can do now, have hope. And it means that we have faith in God and we believe that He will allow this time to pass. And አሁን ወደ አባታችን አባ ሳሙኤል በጸሎት ይከፍቱልናል። Okay. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dalkon Nathanael, and the Abbas, Abba Samuel, they asked me to give you guys a lesson today. So I want to give you guys a lesson on the book of Exodus, on a part of the book of Exodus. A little context for the story is that in the book of Exodus, we follow the Israelites and their time in Egypt, and the trials and the tribulation that they had to go through to get out of Egypt. So I would like to tell you guys a story about the 10 plagues. Now, God, he needed a prophet, he needed a messenger, so he needed someone to relate his message to Pharaoh, so he chose Moses. Moses was a man who had harsh beginnings. In the beginning, he was separated from his family, and he was saved from a princess, an Egyptian princess. He grew up in the palace, and from there he was able to, through his faith, keep his trust in God. So one day, God decided to tell Moses, Moses, please go to the Pharaoh and tell him to release my people. And now God's people were the Israelites, who were the slaves for the Egyptians. Therefore, Moses went to the Pharaoh, and he told the Pharaoh, Pharaoh, God wants his people released. He told me, his messenger, his prophet, to tell you to release his people. The Pharaoh, he denied him. He said, I will not release the Israelites, because he wanted to keep them in slavery. He wanted to use their free labor. So from then, God, he sent his very first plague. Now, a plague is, it's sort of a punishment that God sent to Pharaoh, to the land of Egypt, so that the Pharaoh knows that God isn't messing around. He wants his people released. The very first plague was bloody water. God, he instructed Moses to tell his brother Aaron to put his stick, his rod, into the lake. And Moses followed. He went back to Pharaoh. He told his brother Aaron to stick his staff into the water, and immediately the entire river Nile turned blood. It turned blood, and then all of the fishes, all of the animals in the water, they died. Now this was very hurtful, because now Egyptians didn't have anything to drink. Moses went back to Pharaoh and said, now will you let my people go? Will you let them free? The Pharaoh, he still said no. Now Moses went back to God, and he again told Moses, go to the Pharaoh and ask him once again. And Moses listened. Moses went to the Pharaoh. He asked for his people's freedom, and Pharaoh still said no. Now God, he sent his second plague. He sent frogs. He sent frogs to run rampage all over Egypt. And now, if you guys have ever been to the zoo or anything, we know how frogs are like little tiny creatures, and you might not feel like they're really threatening, but when millions and millions of frogs come, they just annoy the Egyptians, but to the point where they get into the food, they get into the water, and I'm pretty sure anyone could tell you, anything that's been touched by a frog, especially not a clean frog, you can't have it anymore. So the frogs, it also destroyed their food source. Their food source. Now, the Pharaoh, he went to Moses, and he told him, Moses, cancel the frogs. Tell God to take away the frogs, and I will let my people go. I will let your people go. Moses listened, he talked to God, and the frogs disappeared. But the Pharaoh was tricking Moses. He wanted to get the frogs to disappear just because they were becoming a pest to him. In the end of the day, Pharaoh lied. And then again, God told Moses to ask for his people to be set free again. And Moses obliged. He went to the Pharaoh, and this time, when the Pharaoh again said no, God sent lice. He sent lice to storm all of Egypt, to run rampage, to attack the hair. And if you guys have, I'm pretty sure your schools have how do you check your head for lice, but like even in like today's world, lice is very annoying, because if you have lice, you can't go to school, you can't go to work, because you can spread it, and they're bacteria. They're really just annoying pests.
So the fact that they were going all through Egypt again was God's way of telling the Pharaoh, if you do not let my people go, then I will show no mercy. And then again, the Pharaoh said no, and he tricked Moses again, telling him, let my people go, I'll let your people go, just get rid of the lice. He said Moses obliged, but then again the Pharaoh lied. So then when God told Moses to ask again, Moses asked again, and the Pharaoh, he still said no. And now God, he sent flies. He sent more bugs to just annoy the Egyptians. And again, the Pharaoh lied and said, I will let your people go. Just please get rid of the flies. Now these first 4 plagues, the bloody water, the frogs, the lice, and the flies, they might not seem threatening at first, but I consider them the first stages of God's punishment. And we can see this in our real life too, because Pharaoh is just being stubborn. He isn't paying attention to the signs that God is telling him. God is clearly showing what he wants. He's clearly showing, and he's also clearly showing the punishments that will befall Egypt if they don't listen to him. But as you can see, these aren't really harmful because the Egyptians are still intact. Now this is about to change, and we can relate this to our lives, where if we ever get a message from our parents, or if we're ever asked to do something, but we keep being stubborn, we keep procrastinating, we keep putting it off, at first it might seem like we're getting away with it because we see the repercussions aren't as harmful or aren't as bad as we might have expected. But this is a very dangerous thing, because if we commit one crime, if we lie one time, if we steal something once, and we might think that we got away with it, it'll make us think that we can keep doing it. But God shows the Pharaoh that this isn't the case. Repercussions will become harder, even if you don't think they will. So for the 5th plague, God sent cattle killing plague. Now these are like diseases that went after the cows, the fish, the sheep, the goats, all of their livestock, all of their food source. And God's starting to become more serious. He's starting to have much more of an effective way of getting the Pharaoh's attention. And the Pharaoh, he was gambling his luck. He was pushing his luck. He was saying, no, Moses, you don't understand. I will not let your people go. He was showing his stubbornness. And Moses, he was being a good servant to God because he was still showing his patience. He wasn't losing his cool under the pressure, because he knows that God is on his side. He is a clear communicator between God and the Pharaoh. And he knows that because God is on his side, if he continues to do as God says, he will eventually get his people free. So then after the cattle killing plague, Moses again asked for his people to be set free. And this time, when the Pharaoh said no, God sent a poisonous sandstorm. Like it was a dust storm that once it touched the Egyptians, once it touched anyone's skin, it would make it boil, it would make it lumpy and everything. And now we were and then now this was a very harmful disease, because now the Egyptians, the Pharaoh's children, the Pharaoh's people, they were now physically being in pain. They were now physically being hurt. So we can now see that how God was stepping up his game. But this again was another warning, because over here Pharaoh said to Moses, very well, I will let your people go, but he gave God an ultimatum. He said, but they are not allowed to take their animals. They're not allowed to take their cows, their sheep, their goats, their donkeys. They're not allowed to take anything. They can just go. Now Moses, he knew that God did not want this. God did not approve of this. God wanted everything that belonged to the Israelites, everything that belonged to his people, to go with them, because they belonged to them rightfully. So Moses denied this. He said, no, if we leave, we have to take all that belongs to us, because that is what's the right thing to do. And once Pharaoh heard this, Pharaoh again said, no, I will not let you do this. So then Moses again went to God, and he reflected with God. He talked to him. He begged him. He said, please, there's nothing that I can do the Pharaoh is just being too stubborn. He isn't listening to me. God, what am I supposed to do? And God told him, do not worry, Moses. Moses, if you just continue to do as I say, we will get through this. And God, he began to up his game again. Because like I said before, if we lie, if we cheat, and we get away with one thing, and we don't get in trouble, or if we get a little bit of trouble, and we think that we can do it again because the exact same repercussions will be happening to us, that's not a good habit to get into. because like the Pharaoh noticed, at first, the first 4 plagues, the bloody water, the frogs, the lice, the flies, those were all petty annoyances. They weren't really physically doing any damage. And then the second wave came. The cattle killing plague, the poisonous sandstorm, these were a little more serious, because now it was affecting the Egyptians personally. Not like an annoyance, but it was becoming more of a deterrence. So we can see how, if we want to like think about it in our life, it would be, let's say we lied about something and that lie is catching back to us. It's we're getting caught in the act of lying, and we're losing the trust of some of our friends. That can be our version of the second wave of plagues. Because if we're not careful, if we continue to lie or continue to do bad habits, then things will only get worse for us. Now, if we talk about the Pharaoh again, we're also seeing how his stubbornness is getting into the way of what God wants. And I'm pretty sure you guys have that one stubborn friend who once he has his mind set on something, then there's no changing it. And in some occasions, that's a good thing, because it shows how you're confident and how you're persistent and how you'll just keep fighting. You will never give up. But in some other cases, this is a dangerous thing, because it can lead you to not understanding what God's message is, because it makes you think, oh, I'm better than God. Oh, I know what I want for me. Oh, I understand what's the right thing to do. But that isn't always the case, because God, he works in mysterious ways. He works in ways that we can't comprehend, because we're just petty people to him. But he loves us, and that's why he's demonstrating to us his power through our faith. So then after this, when Moses went to the Pharaoh again, he asked him, please let my people go. And God, for the 7th plague, after the Pharaoh said no, he sent hail. Now, if you guys don't know what hail is like a rocky storm. It was ice. Basically, ice was raining on Egypt. And if you guys know, Egypt is in a sandy area. It's in the desert. And even though they do have the Nile, they can't really prepare themselves for this weather, because it's never expected of them. So this was also harmful for the Egyptians, because it went through most of their houses. They had to rebuild many of the houses. And again, the Pharaoh lied to God. He went to Moses. He called Moses and Aaron, and he said, please, if you get rid of the hailstorm, I will let your people go. And Moses agreed to this. He ended the plague, and again, the Pharaoh lied. And on the 8th plague, Pharaoh just keeps repeating his lies and lies. God sent locusts, which were like grasshoppers or dragonflies, but these actively went and they killed and ate the animals too. And in the 5th plague, it was cattle killing plague. Even after those cattle were killed, they could still eat the cattle. But with the locusts, the locusts were taking the food from the Egyptians. They were eating them. They were killing them first, poisoning the meat, and then eating them. So the Egyptians couldn't eat the meat, and that was just a waste. And how, again, we can talk about the Israelites, how they have just gone through 8 plagues. They have had to suffer through 8 plagues. And I'm pretty sure that if any of us were in their positions, we would have probably given up hope, because we would think, oh, we would stay a slave forever. Because if the Pharaoh, their current God at the moment, was saying, no, you will not be free, I will not let you be free, and they were sending plagues after plagues after plagues, I'm pretty sure if I was an Israelite, I would probably give up hope, because I don't think I would have the capacity to continue hoping for that to happen. But the Israelites, they thought harder than that. They felt stronger than that, because they knew that Moses, their trusted servant, the prophet of their time, he was communicating with their God. He was communicating personally. So he would go onto the mountain. He would speak with them. He would have deep conversation with them. And because of that, they knew not to give up hope. They also placed their trust in Moses. And placing trust on one person is a very big deal, because once you start trusting somebody, it's if someone has placed your trust in them, if someone has placed their trust in you, you cannot break that trust, because if you do, you have severed bonds. You have destroyed relationships with other people, because once you break somebody's trust, you can't rebuild it. It'll be very hard to rebuild that trust. And going through with all that pressure Moses had to deal with, he still continued to have faith in God. And finally, after the locusts, the 9th plague that God sent was 3 days of darkness. And when I'm talking about darkness, I mean God did not let the sun rise for 3 full days. And in this time, it wasn't like nighttime where you can still go outside. It was complete darkness. The Israelites, the Egyptians, all of them they also had to be in quarantine for 3 days. They had to stay indoors. They couldn't go outside. They couldn't do their chores or anything because it was so dark. They had no idea what was going on. And the Pharaoh, he again lied to God. He said, Moses, please let the sun come back. Let the brightness shine over Egypt again. And if you do this, I will let your people go. And again, the Pharaoh, he lied to God, and he allowed this to happen because he thought, oh, Moses is just going to continue letting me lie to him. If I keep saying that I want something done, and Moses keeps letting me do it, I can continue to do this. And this is a habit that the Pharaoh has been creating because the Pharaoh has put his faith in the wrong thing. He placed his faith in Moses' weakness because he believes that Moses is too trusting. And he believes that Moses will continue believing him if he keeps saying, oh, let my people go. I will let your people go. Just get rid of the plague. Pharaoh believes that he can keep using that line over and over again. And in reality, he's just digging his hole deeper and deeper. And for the 9th and probably most dangerous plague, and for the 10th plague, God sent his angel of death. He told Moses, this will be my last plague. After this, I am confident that the Pharaoh will let my people go. He told him to go to Egypt, to tell the Pharaoh, to tell him that that my angel of death, that God's angel of death will pass through everyone's house. And in everyone's house, it will kill every firstborn child, every firstborn son, unless the house of that child has lamb's blood on top of it. Now Moses, he went to the Pharaoh and he told him this. But the Pharaoh, he was a skeptic. He did not believe in Moses' words. He thought of him as a liar because he felt like, what man, what deity, what being could kill hundreds of firstborns in cold blood? But Moses also told him about the lamb's blood, but the Pharaoh did not oblige. And when Moses went back to his people, the Israelites, he told them, you should paint your houses with lamb's blood, and this will guarantee that the angel of death will not kill your son. So that is what they did. The Pharaoh, still having strong faith in his wrong ideals of lying and cheating Moses, the next morning when he woke up, his son was dead. God's word was kept. The firstborn son of all Egyptian houses in Egypt, they were killed. And this was what finally let the Pharaoh eventually accept that God is the true God and let the Israelites go. And over here we can finally see that if the Pharaoh just listened to Moses at first, if he just trusted Moses' word, even after the first or second plagues, he could have saved himself so much heartbreak. He could have saved himself from losing a son. He could have saved himself from having lice attack his head or being 3 days of quarantine. He could have saved himself a bunch of trouble if he just had faith and listened to Moses when he first talked. But it was because of his stubbornness that he didn't. And finally, the Israelites, after they were able to be free, they were able to travel, and they also had trials and tribulations in the desert, but eventually they were able to get to their promised land, past the river Jordan. And this Jordan River, it was a very big deal because it demonstrated how their faith in God, their hope, their trust, and their belief in his divine power and in his divine plan, how it overall connected everyone together, because it was after they crossed the river, that they were able to go and start their own new life. And if we want to connect this in our life, we can see how in this time of quarantine, in this time of COVID-19, how it might be hard to have trust or have faith in God, because I know you guys all miss your friends, you guys all miss seeing your classmates and having fun, playing outside. I know that you guys probably miss eating something besides injera because we can't order out as much as we used to, but like the Israelites had faith in Moses, and Moses had faith in God, we just have to continue having faith in the experts that are dealing with the crisis, because they are our version of Moses. They are the ones who have to go out there every day. They're the first responders. They're the ones who have to be in contact with corona patients so that we don't have to be in contact with corona patients. And I know that it's house life is getting boring. Even for me too, I'm getting really bored, but I find it helpful to just not annoy my parents, because I know that they are also dealing with this and more, because they have to worry about, oh, how am I going to get the income? How am I going to support my family? Because many people have lost their jobs, small businesses have closed down, people have become unemployed, and it was all because of this unforeseen event. And even though this corona, we can't blame anybody for it, it's just happening, and it might seem like, oh, God has forsaken us. It might seem that, oh, he doesn't care, he's letting this happen. What kind of God would do that? We just have to understand that God let the people of Israel be enslaved, but he never let them go. He always had faith, and he also expected them to have faith in him. And it was that faith and that trust that got them through. And if we want to think about what can I do to help my family, or what can I do to continue having good ideals, or to continue not to be bored, just think about it. You aren't the only ones who are bored. Your family, your brothers, your sisters, your parents, they're all bored with you. But it's better to be bored and safe than it is to be outside and in danger. And that's why we just have to continue to place our faith in those who do have the power. And then and eventually we will cross the river, like how the Israelites, they crossed the river Jordan to their promised land. We will eventually, after this quarantine lifts, we will eventually cross the river to be able to see our friends again. We'll be able to cross the river to go to church, to worship together, to pray together, to go outside, to go to the beach, because I know you guys miss the beach, because I miss the beach a lot. But just know that the more that we have faith, that the more that the stronger we will. I want you guys to know that the things that we learned during quarantine, once it lifts, you guys shouldn't forget about it. You guys shouldn't forget to your hands, because we don't want this happening to us again. We don't want quarantine to we don't want another COVID-19 case to start up again. And the best way to do this is to what they're saying on the TV, like how to wash your hands 20 seconds. If you have to go outside, wear a mask. To keep your distance, stay 6 feet apart. If you have to sneeze on your elbow, so to make sure that no one else catches it. And after quarantine ends, and after we cross our version of the River Jordan, then we will be able to do all of the things we miss doing, like going out, playing outside with our friends, meeting up with our family, other cousins, and everyone. We'll be able to do that, but we just have to remember that we're still in a battle. But once the war ends, we have to continue to remember and continue to practice the things we learned in war, like the cleaning of the hands and everything. And I'd also like to especially to the teens out there who think that, oh, because of quarantine, I don't have to focus on school or anything. You have to continue to assert your education, because it's, even though it looks like school is taking a pause right now, it hasn't taken a pause. So I just want you guys to focus on that, because I know staying at home might look like you guys are having a vacation. You guys still have to work, and I just don't want you guys to forget about that. And yes. በስመ አብ ወወልድ ወመንፈስ ቅዱስ አሐዱ አምላክ አሜን. Thank you guys for listening.
The glory to the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, both now and forever, into the age of the ages. Amen. Thank you, Deacon. We thank you, Deacon Nati, and Deacon Abraham. It's a really wonderful sermon. I hope you guys enjoying the sermon. And I thank you so much for those who are watching our service today. And we'll see you again on the coming Friday. We'll have a new guest on the coming Friday, hopefully, if, God willing. Maybe Cassis, I'm sorry, I forgot his name. Anyways, we're going to have a new guest on the coming Friday. For now, it's the end of our program. I will invite Abba Samuel to close this program.
አምላካችን ፈጣሪያችን እግዚአብሔር ሆይ ይህችን ሰዓት ባርከህ ቀድሰህ ስለሰጠህን ቃልህን እንድንሰማ ስለፈቀድክልን እናመሰግናለን። ለልጆቻችን ለአገልጋዮቻችን ጥበብን፣ ሞገስን፣ ፍቅርን፣ ትህትናን፣ አንድነትን፣ ዕውቀትን፣ ጤንነትን እንድታድልልን በሀብት በጥበብ በሞገስ በእውቀት እንድታሳድግልን እንለምናለን። አምላካችን እግዚአብሔር ሆይ ይህን ቃል ሁለትም ሶስትም ሆነው የሚሰሙትን አንተን በማገልገል አንተን በመከተል አንተን በማምለክ እንድታጸናቸው እንለምናለን። አምላካችን ቸርነትህ፣ ምሕረትህ፣ ይቅርታ ፈጥኖ ይደረግልን። በቸርነትህ በምሕረትህ በይቅርታ ይቅር በለን። መሐሪነትህ ቸርነትህ አይለየን። ሕፃናትን በእውቀት በጥበብ በጸጋ በሞገስ አሳድግልን። ዲያቆን ናቲ፣ ዲያቆን አብርሃም እጅግ በጣም እናመሰግናለን። እግዚአብሔር ይባርካችሁ፣ እግዚአብሔር ይጠብቃችሁ፣ እግዚአብሔር ያሳድጋችሁ። በእውነት ጤንነትን ጸጋን ያላብሳችሁ እግዚአብሔር። ይሄ ለወገን መድረስ ቤተክርስቲያንን ማገልገል ባሉበት ሆኖ አንዱ መባረክ አንዱ ቅንነት ነውና እንግዲህ ቤተሰቦቻችሁንም ሁሉ እግዚአብሔር ይጠብቅልን። በጣም እናመሰግናለን። ቀሲስ ውድነህ እንግዲህ እግዚአብሔር ቸር ነው። እግዚአብሔር በእውነት ልጆችን መተካት ያው የሚያስተምሩ ልጆችን ማየት በራሱ የቅንነት ውጤት መሆኑን መማር ማስታወስ እንችላለንና እግዚአብሔር ያክብርልን። በቀጣይም የሚያገለግሉ መምህራንን ይጠብቅልን። እኛንም የሰማነውን በዝነ ልቦናችን ይሳልብን ያሳድርብን። ሰላም ያቆየን አምላክ ሰላም ምሽት እንዲያደርግልን አባታችን ሆይ ብለን ስሙን እንጠራለን። አባታችን ሆይ በሰማያት የምትኖር ስምህ ይቀደስ፣ መንግስትህ ትምጣ፣ ፈቃድህ በሰማይ እንደሆነች እንዲሁም በምድር ትሁን። የዕለት እንጀራችንን ስጠን ዛሬ፣ በደላችንን ሁሉ ይቅር በለን እኛም የበደሉንን ይቅር እንደምንል፣ አቤቱ ወደ ፈተና አታግባን ከክፉ ሁሉ አድነን እንጂ መንግስት ያንተ ናትና ኃይል፣ ክብር፣ ምስጋና ለዘላለሙ አሜን። እመቤታችን ቅድስት ድንግል ማርያም ሆይ በመልአኩ በቅዱስ ገብርኤል ሰላምታ ሰላም እንልሻለን። በሐሳብሽ ድንግል ነሽ፣ በሥጋሽም ድንግል ነሽ። አሸናፊ እግዚአብሔር እናት ሆይ ሰላምታ ላንቺ ይገባሻል። ከሴቶች ሁሉ ተለይተሽ አንቺ የተባረክሽ ነሽ፣ የማኅፀንሽ ፍሬ የተባረከ ነው። ጸጋን የተመላሽ ቅድስት ሆይ ደስ ይበልሽ፣ ልዑል እግዚአብሔር ካንቺ ጋር ነውና ከተወደደው ልጅሽ ከጌታችን ከመድኃኒታችን ከኢየሱስ ክርስቶስ ዘንድ ይቅርታውና ምሕረቱን ለምኝልን ኃጢአታችንን ያስተሰርይልን ለዘላለሙ አሜን። ኦ ጊዜ ኢየሱስ ክርስቶስ ሠራየ ኃጢአቴ ወኃጢአተ ኩሉ ሕዝብከ እያወቅን በድፍረት ሳናውቅ በስህተት የሠራነውን የማይሠራ ኃጢአት እግዚአብሔር ይፍታ። በያላችሁበት ሰላም እግዚአብሔር ይብዛላችሁ። እግዚአብሔር ይባርካችሁ ይጠብቃችሁ።
እሺ ፕሮግራማችንን የማታው ፕሮግራም በተለመደው ሰዓት 11 ሰዓት በሎስ አንጀለስ 6 ፒኤም ይጀምራል። በመከታተል ላይ ያላችሁ የወጣቶች የህፃናት ወላጆች አብራችሁ የሃይ ስኩል ተመራቂዎችን በተመለከተ ባለፈው አስተላልፈናል። ፎቶግራፍና ስማቸውን በዘንድሮ ተመራቂ የሆኑ ልጆች ያሏችሁ ወላጆች ስማቸውንና ፎቶግራፋቸውን እንድትሰጡን እንጠይቃለን። በጊዜው በሰዓቱ በብፁዕ አባታችን ቡራኬ ልጆቹ ከእግዚአብሔር ቤት የሚመረቁበት ልዩ ፕሮግራም አዘጋጅተናል።